Recording. There. Well, good morning. It's 11 o'clock, so we try to start these Tuesday talent series on time. So thank you for joining us today for finding and retaining talent and look at the current state of, sorry, I have something written right here. I can't read your title. A guide to business services and resources from Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development. We have two amazing gentlemen who've been at the county as long as I could remember, but they're not old enough to be there that long, but there they are. So Andrew Miner and Adam Crowe have put together some wonderful data and information for us as well for today to talk about current state of talent and a lot of great information for you to help with your talent searches. So want to learn about how the economy has performed since 2020 and explain the inequities of the recovery, also how businesses can navigate the seemingly impossible labor market and learn how to access tools and services from our amazing Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development team. This talent series is sponsored by Plante Moran. Plante Moran is among the nation's largest accounting, tax, consulting, and wealth management firms and provides a full line of services to organizations in the following industries: manufacturing and distribution, financial services, healthcare, private equity, public sector, real estate, construction, and energy. Plante Moran has a staff of more than 3,300 professionals throughout the United States, with international offices in Shanghai, China, Mumbai, India, Tokyo, Japan, and Monterrey, Mexico. In Colorado, Plante Moran has served its Colorado clients for more than 40 years with offices in Broomfield, Denver, and Fort Collins. Plante Moran has been recognized by a number of organizations, including Fortune magazine, as one of the country's best places to work. For more information, please visit plantemoran.com. So you kind of know the groundwork about how this works. The folks will actually run their own slides. We are recording this and we will send out the PowerPoint slides and the recording to everyone who's registered. It will also be stored on our website forever. So if you go to Fort Collins Chamber website and type in talent series, you'll be able to refer to these slides and resources. So you don't need to take a lot of notes. We'll get you all that information to you. So Andrew and Adam, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Yvonne. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And I'm just going to do some quick introductions for on what we're going to talk about today while Andrew is sharing the slides. So as Yvonne had said, I'm Adam Crowe and I'm the Economic Development Manager with Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development. And she already gave you a really good overview of our presentation. But just to sort of talk you through the logistics, on the upfront end, I'm going to share some data and really set the stage. And then Andrew is going to talk about the services and some of the techniques that we use to help businesses find candidates. And one of the things that I would say, and maybe one of the things Andrew wouldn't say, is he's a really good guy to get to know, especially if you're in the business of hiring candidates or you're having challenges with that. And the major reason for that is a lot of the information we're going to share with you on the front end keeps us up to date on a lot of the talent trends in Northern Colorado and nationally. And we adjust our services at Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development to keep up with those. And Andrew is really on the forefront of making that happen, as well as helping businesses understand the data that might impact their work and their hiring practices. So he's going to talk a little bit about that, but I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that he is one of those guys that's really good to get to know. He's also pretty easy to get to know because he's a pretty nice guy. So anyway, very responsive. So without further ado, Andrew, if you could skip along to the next slide, that'd be great. All right, so a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to take on the first three bullets, which is really a big picture economic outlook. Then we'll talk about unemployment and work participation, and then job market in Northern Colorado. And there's really some trends out of this data that we want you all to latch onto and understand more deeply. And it's going to lead to where most of the meat of our presentation is going to be, and that's our business services that Andrew's going to talk about. And he wants you to walk out of here not only understanding what those are, but some tricks and techniques and focuses that you all can have within your organizations to just do a better job at retaining and finding the talent that you need. And I would say Q&A at the end. That's fine. We'll answer questions at the end. We'll also answer questions at any time. Just raise your hand, come off mute, put something in the chat. we'll be watching all of those things, and we want to make sure that you get what you need out of this presentation. So without further ado, we're going to move into the next piece. Thank you, Andrew. I keep doing the cursor, even though it's not doing anything on my screen here. But anyway, economic outlook. Let's dive in. The first thing, GDP is always on people's minds, and we have some data nationally up to the third quarter of last year to share with you. And of course, it's updated monthly, but these are more secure because I go back and clean up the data a bit. So this is what we end up sharing. And what you can see is we've had some deficits, then we've had some gains. So really what we're sharing this to tell you all is that nationally, it's hard to tell when a recession or if a recession might come. Economists are really divided, but the data is looking as though we're going to continue to see growth in our economy nationally and locally for some time. But Andrew, if you could move to the next one. And of course, this is what we're seeing more locally. And when we say NOCO, it's Larimer and Weld counties. We're going to use that term a few times throughout the presentation, but truly it's those northern Colorado counties we're talking about. And again, we've seen some dips, we've seen some rises in our local GDP and regional GDP in northern Colorado. So are we recovering from the pandemic? All signs are saying yes. Economically, will we see a recession in northern Colorado? It's looking like if we do have a recession, it wouldn't be as bad as we might see in other places. And that's a big if we see a recession. So continuing on down to the next slide, please, Andrew. We like to show this slide so that you all can see where GDP comes in. So essentially the dollars that are coming into our northern Colorado economy, where they come from. And I probably won't spend a lot of time on this slide unless you all have questions, but it's good for folks to understand that manufacturing is a huge driver for us. Real estate is, construction is. We often get asked, isn't oil and gas bigger? It isn't as big as people think in northern Colorado, and it hasn't been quite as big in the last couple of years. So this is an up-to-date of where is the money going when it comes into northern Colorado, which industries. But anyway, Andrew, next we want to shift pictures just a little bit to show some of what's happened during the pandemic, because we're still seeing some of this, and this is around personal incomes. So it's household incomes, things that are driving our economy from that household impact, as well as people going to work and reasons for going to work and all of those pieces. So this is the first piece that we want to help to set the stage with. So even though it's hard to tell exactly where we're going with our national economy and is it up, is it down, it's a little bit hard to tell. What we are able to see in looking in the past a little bit is how deeply through the recession many people's personal incomes were hurt. Now they had savings, we had infusions into the economy from the federal government, which really helped, some state infusions. This is just income, right? So a lot of that isn't counted, so you can see the deficit here. And then if we were to move along to 2022, you can see that there was a pretty big shift in just 1 year from a deficit to an increase. However, the increase isn't quite as big as the deficit. Now we're still waiting for our 2023 numbers. We probably won't get those for a little while yet, until about mid-year, where we start to see the projections around this. But essentially what we're seeing here is that people are coming back from those financial challenges that the recession had visited upon them, and they're starting to spend. And I think we're seeing that in our economy, which is a good thing. But we also need to recognize that there are some folks out there that are carrying increased amount of personal debt, like credit cards and things, and they just haven't quite found their way out of that. It's not a huge percentage of our population, but it's enough, and those folks tend to be on the margin, so it is a bit of a challenge. And we're going to look a little bit more at that in just a minute. But Andrew, if you'd go to the next, please. So we're going to look at these. Yeah, go ahead and let them all show, all four of them. This is, again, to get at that point off of the other slide, in that the pandemic impacted people differently. And it's important for us, even though we feel like the pandemic is done, and I think it is in most cases, we're still riding some of those residual waves coming out of it. And it depends on who you are and the identities that you have in our community that represent how it impacted you in large part. So through education, you can see that there's some changes there, that you were much less likely to see a drop in income with higher levels of education. We look at income, quintiles, sorry, I really wanted to go a different direction with that word. But anyhow, what you can see here is that if you were on the margins, if you had less education, if you are a person of color, if you had children, you were impacted more greatly by the pandemic. And a lot of the folks that are in those circumstances haven't quite gotten back to where they were pre-pandemic. And so, Andrew, if you could go back or go to the next slide, that'd be great. And we're seeing it again when we look at those same groups of folks, but this is even a deeper challenge, and it shows some even greater stratification here around having enough to eat during the pandemic. And this is a really strong measure that the Fed uses to just show how on the margins are folks. And of course, when we look at education, income, race, and number of children, you can definitely see that there are some folks that haven't been able to participate in the economy as much as others. And that remains a challenge for us moving forward. And how do we help folks that have either not traditionally been included at the same levels in those conversations? And what we'll see through this presentation is that we almost have to, because we are in a labor shortage, and we're going to play out what that looks like moving forward. But again, as you are looking at your new labor pools, many of them are going to be in circumstances where they're challenged economically at home, maybe not even able to put enough food on the table because of the circumstances and the identities that they have. All right, Andrew, if you go to the next one, please. Another one to keep in mind, this is going to get at some of the data that Andrew's looking at and some of what we'll look at a little bit later on around retaining employees. But this is a nod towards the fact that much of the data that we're seeing right now is showing that our efforts around a lot of DEI work that came up during the pandemic and the focus that a lot of organizations had on that, if not we all as a nation had, are really not seeing dividends or benefits when we look at leaders moving into positions of leadership, or people of color moving into, or women moving into positions of leadership. So again, it's going to take a lot of work to turn those tides. It's also going to take many years to turn some of those tides. And so when we think about recruiting people of color, or we think about recruiting women, we need to think about it very differently. And part of the reason for that is that you very clearly hear when we move from manager to senior, or even entry level to manager, you can see that there is a breakdown. Something is breaking within most organizations that is not allowing, or women, for whatever reason, are not taking or moving into those opportunities. So there's some sort of breakdown that's happening. It's different per organization, and we're going to look at what we think some of those pieces are in later data sets. But again, this is something that's really important to keep in mind and think about, because women and people of color look at applying for jobs and looking for advancement opportunities very different than men do, and specifically white men. So Andrew, if you'd move on to the next one, that'd be great. All right, so we just got done talking about the fact that there have been lots of uneven impacts in the pandemic, and you, as folks who are in positions to hire or help people find employment or whatever that may be, it's good for you to understand that those unequal impacts are still very prescient for some individuals, and how they might need support or how they show up at work. So the next thing that we want to talk about that's really impacting our labor market and our local economy is just plain age, right? We just don't have as many young people as we used to. However, our millennials and our Gen Zers are very quickly taking up a lot of positions and a lot of the percentage of our labor market. And when we look at Generation Xers, which is me, I'm in that generation. These are individuals that tend to be in their 40s and maybe early 50s, maybe mid 50s. Well, these individuals are sort of their prime earning years, their prime skill years. They're those folks that are moving into leadership positions. Well, there aren't as many Gen Xers to move into those positions. So we're starting to see companies needing to and wanting to invest in some of their younger employees sooner than they had. And again, that's a great retention piece, because a lot of those folks know that there aren't as many of millennials, and that investment is super important in them to move them into those leadership positions more quickly, because there just aren't enough Gen Xers or baby boomers in the market anymore. to just focus on them. All right, Andrew, if you'd move to the next one. And then the other piece that's built around this is that when we think about, I want you all to keep this in mind because this is going to play out and impact almost everything else we look at today, is that there are not as many people in the workforce as there used to be. And we knew this was going to happen, and we've been talking about it now for about 2 decades. And the pandemic sped some of that up, so it feels like it happened all at once, but it's been happening pretty gradually over 20 years. But the truth of the matter is that the baby boomers were a very large generation. Gen X is a fairly small generation. Millennials aren't very big, and Gen Zers aren't very big. And you can see them playing out in Colorado here as of last year. And so if we don't have the workforce here locally, we have created a much more competitive market for those few workers that we do have. And again, some of what Andrew is going to be talking about is how do you compete in retaining and hiring those employees? There's also a need for us to start looking at additional talent pools. And we're going to talk a little bit about that we had discussed. And those folks that you maybe haven't recruited in the past, you're going to have to recruit them very differently. And again, that's something that Andrew's going to talk about. And then the bottom line is that some organizations may have to figure out how they can do with fewer employees, at least in the short term. And then regionally, there's definitely some efforts going on to reskill and upskill folks into key positions. How do we get our younger folks going earlier? And then and if college isn't a great fit, how do we move them into apprenticeships and work even more quickly? But along with that, there's got to be some strong efforts around recruiting from outside of the area, which is something that Colorado is pretty well known for because we're a desirable place to live. And there are some great things that are happening in economic development and workforce to help you when it comes to recruiting externally to Northern Colorado. So for sure, watch for Andrew as he's talking about those pieces. But again, there just aren't quite as many workers out there. All right, Andrew, if you go on to the next slide. We're going to dig in a little bit around labor participation. So the workforce we have, what's happening with the workforce we have? That's what we're really discussing for the next few slides. Unemployment rates, as you can see, it's dipping. That's great. But again, there's fewer people in the workforce. So there aren't as many people going to work. However, the ones that are going to work are going to work in those pretty close to pre-pandemic numbers when it comes to, or rates, sorry, not numbers, but rates. All right, Andrew, if you'd go to the next slide. Again, we've seen labor participation go up. It's really good to note that you're going to see that yellow line, which is Weld County, lag behind in some of these areas. And that really has to do with oil and gas, which was a major contributor to that economy in Weld County specifically. So it touches the region as a whole, but because there's been some downturns in employment and downturns and because of that, there's been downturns in wages in Weld County because those were fairly high paid jobs. We do see that Weld County lags there a little bit, and it is truly just because of oil and gas. Well, not just, but mostly because of oil and gas. And you can see us all dipping a little bit at the end. A lot of that is just end of the year stuff that you kind of see that happen throughout a lot of these numbers. If we were to go back even 20 years, you can see that the end of each year dips just a little bit. All right, Andrew, if you'd go on to the next slide. So zooming out away from or zooming out to a national view, we really want to look at some numbers comparatively. And what we're looking at right now is women in the workforce. So in the 1950s, I think we had a culture around women staying at home. We can all think about that, or we've seen it, or maybe we even experienced it. All the way up to women being a bigger part of the workforce. We saw some dips in the 2010s to 2020. And what's really key here is that where we see that last line, that last vertical line at 2020, that is the pandemic. And you can see where it dipped down. Well, if we wouldn't have had the pandemic and the line of women's work participation had continued over, we would see that many more women would be in the workforce right now. So the pandemic really did clear a lot of women out. And again, we're going to look at that. One of the key pieces to it was childcare, and that it sort of reset a lot of family structures. And childcare has always been hard to find. And that's why when we look at men next, we'll compare the two together. We have over time seen the opposite happen with men in the labor force. So this is happening over many decades. close to more than a half century now. So again, when we look at our population growing, we've been able to sustain our economy because there are more people in the workforce, or just as many in the workforce, even though there's a lower percentage of them working. Well, now that our population is shifting and we're still seeing lower numbers of men in our workforce than we have in previous decades, it's coming to a head, right? So we have some lower participation than we've seen, but we also have fewer people in the job market. And of course, there's lots of factors. We could spend an hour just talking about this chart period, but just wanted you to be aware of those pieces. And then if we look at the two together, it's kind of fascinating. So women on the bottom and men on the top here, they're not still connected. And for any of you that were at the Talent Summit, the great speaker that was there, one of the things that he highlighted is that there's still a big difference between what we're seeing here when it comes to participation between men and women in the workforce. A lot of that has to do with childcare. And that most of the labor at home still goes to women, and that's still a responsibility of women in our culture. And so that's where we see that gap, and it fits in with this next chart, and that Andrew was good enough to pull in at the last minute for us. It doesn't exactly fit here, but it kind of gives you a sense of the wage differentials when we look at men and women. And again, if you're not in the workforce, you're not going to be earning as much wage, or if you have to take time out of the workforce and then come back, you're oftentimes resetting your career. So a lot of that has to do with, again, childcare. So Carol, you've got a question. I'm going to pause here for just a second. Yes, we do. And in fact, we're going to take a look at that in just a second, Carol. So let me know if you continue to have questions after our next slide. Go ahead, Andrew. There we go. All right, you can go ahead and show all of these. Whoops. All right. So I wanted to break this out just so that you all have it. Again, it's not the most ideal way to share this type of information. So there's some highlights here. But you can see who makes up our labor force and at what percentage each of these, each of these categories of individuals show up. So we can see by age on the right-hand side, like you had asked about, Carol. We can see men, women, and we can see folks based on race and ethnicity. So what I did highlight is some key areas, in that within white workers, we have seen a decline over the last 20 years. With men, we've seen, like we had seen in the chart, a significant decline, not quite as much with women, but it's still a decline. And then in some of our key age areas, so our younger folks, they have had one of the biggest declines we're going to see on here, our 16 to 19-year-olds. And a lot of that is that there just isn't quite as much emphasis on working while you're in high school or working in your early college years as we used to have. And I think there are more folks that are going into college at 18 or 19. And that decreases our labor participation rates. And then what we are seeing is some upticks when we get into our older age groups. This may change out of the pandemic, but this is what we're seeing here in this data through 2021 is still some residuals from the recession that we had in 2008, 2010, and people who had lost their savings needed to get back to work. And so there was a habit of folks who had retired, not retiring quite as early or working part-time to make up some of those deficits. And that had continued for the decade after. So we may see some of this turnaround, and that we're seeing people retire more on time after the pandemic, but we may not see that. Well, that remains to be seen. But these folks in our 55 and older have often created a buffer within our workforce because they don't retire seamlessly and just not work anymore, but rather part-time or contract work for some time. All right, if you go ahead, Andrew, to the next one. This is one that's pretty key, and this is data that we don't find being discussed a whole lot, so I wanted to spend some time with you all on this. So labor participation and who makes up our workforce is really important. And this is when we think about the United States, this entire chart, it says total workforce 164. So that's 164 million people. And this is what those 164 million people are up to. 100 million of them are in what we would consider our traditional employment. So this is somebody who is hired and works for a wage or works for a salary, has a schedule, and reports to a chain of command within an organization. So it's the work that we all think about when we think about work. We have about 6 million people at any given moment that are unemployed nationally. And then we have this group of varying shades of blue, which makes up that 36%, which are in non-traditional employment. So these are individuals that are gig working, driving Uber. They may have started their own business and they're just maybe working contract jobs, things along those lines. But that's what fits into those three top categories. And pre-pandemic, the percentage of folks in our national economy that fit into that non-traditional work was somewhere between 22 and 25%. And they were thinking when they ran this data, the BLS, that Bureau of Labor Statistics was thinking that it might go up to around 27%. And so they were absolutely shocked and shot past it right to 36%. So what we're seeing here is that a big piece of what's happening in our labor force right now is that these people are in the labor force, but they're not working in traditional employment at the same numbers. And in fact, almost 10% more than we had expected isn't working in those capacities, which is lots of millions of people. So the question becomes, if they're working, but they're not working in permanent jobs, which is much of what the hiring challenge, or much of those positions are where we see the hiring challenge, why is that and what can we do about it? So let's talk about why is that. So we're going to go on to some of the slides here. So paired with this, we know that our leadership, we talked about it a little bit. We know that we have voluntary attrition within leadership at really high numbers right now. And there is a difference between men and women, but it has shot up since the pandemic. And some of the difference there between men and women has to do with other duties as assigned. And that's at the home and at work. Right? So women tend to bear more responsibility at home and on the job for other duties as assigned. The other thing that women do is they tend to be the culture builders and the culture maintainers on the job, especially in positions of leadership. Well, during the pandemic, it became super important to engage employees, especially if they needed to work virtually. And so a lot of that work fell to women because, again, that's a culture, that's a communication, that's an employee investment piece. And again, a lot of times that extra work falls to women. So we saw a lot of burnouts. And then in a lot of cases, those women are also parents, so they had additional work at home. So we're seeing many more leaders right now that are saying, okay, I'm done, I want to move away from the workforce for a while, but we're seeing the percentage of women even higher within that. All right, Andrew, if you go on to the next one. And so again, when we look at the top reasons that people are leaving their jobs right now, it goes back to leadership. And what's interesting, if we look at the top categories here around why people are leaving their jobs, this hasn't changed in probably 2 decades. These are the reasons that people have always left their jobs. It hasn't really changed a whole lot. But if we go on to the next slide, we start to see some differences appear. And it's top reasons why people who left their jobs would return to work. And we see that it's broken down into those folks that are non-traditional, that 36% that we were looking at, as well as currently employed folks. So these are people that have maybe gone to something else. Can they be enticed back to the work that they had? Meaningful work is right up at the top. And I think that's probably going to remain at the top for quite some time. Workplace flexibility is number 2, and obviously compensation is number 3. Now we see compensation go up and down depending on the stats, but it's always there. Workforce flexibility has become a really big discussion for all of us. And it's interesting when you talk with employers, in a lot of cases, they think it's work from home. The truth of the matter is that when you have that discussion with a worker who has left in these circumstances, it's a very different discussion. For them, it's not necessarily work from home. Work from home is nice, but it's really, can I have control over where and how I work, right? And sometimes when I work. Can I get the job done? Can I have some flexibility in doing that? So can I take time to spend with my kids, visit them in class, make sure their childcare is taken care of? And the other piece of that is that can I take that time without someone looking over my shoulder? So for instance, if I take time off, am I going to be seen as somebody who isn't contributing and trying hard? Am I going to be seen as somebody who's a problem because I took my vacation time? And I think there are some work cultures that people are fed up with that are built around that it's all productivity. And it is breaking down some work cultures, and I think probably IT or what we see in some of the high tech companies, that is a pervasive or at least a known culture. We're starting to see some of that breakdown as well. But meaningful work comes back to, I mean, this is well, if I'm hauling trash, is that really meaningful? People build their own meaning, but what we've learned, and Andrew's going to talk about this, is that you have to be able to talk about what your work is in a real way and why people stay with your organization and the meaning that they find. Everybody needs to find their own meaning, but you have to talk about why your work is valuable and why it's important. And then people can see the meaning in that. And not enough companies do that when they're hiring, and not enough companies do that while people are retained and helping their employees to see what they're doing. All right, Andrew, if you go on to the next one. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. So job postings, I think you all are probably at the forefront of understanding that in Northern Colorado, job postings have gone up. They just have, because it takes more work to hire that one person. You're going to have to post more jobs. And there's been more open positions. If you go on to the next one, Andrew, that'd be great. And then employment changes. So this is a number of people who are employed in Northern Colorado in these different geographic areas, as well as Colorado, where so the zero line is pre-pandemic. So in most cases, Weld County's getting there, but in most cases, we're above that line. So we're back to those employment percentages. Now, again, these are percentages. We still have a deficit in that the sheer number of people working is smaller. So there is still that deficit based on sheer number of folks, but we're back to those percentage of our workers in the workforce. Andrew, if you go on to the next one, that'd be great. All right, and then wages, we've seen them climb everywhere, and it would be great, maybe in the next presentation, we look at wages, less on geography and maybe more on industry, because that might be a better way of showing that Weld County is also seeing wage gains, but overall, because the one industry has been hit, we're seeing that dip, but it doesn't mean that they haven't seen wage gains in other industries. And then when we look at what this is, as far as wages, so Andrew, if you go on to the next one, or dollar amount, you can see here that it's fairly significant to go from $30 an hour to $35 an hour, especially if you have 5 or 6 employees. If you have hundreds of employees, obviously that's a big challenge. But what it's really important for us to recognize is that most of the wage gain in Northern Colorado and nationally has been in our more entry-level positions or our lower skilled positions. That's where we've seen a lot of wage gains. We've seen it in the middle, we've seen it at the high, but not near as much as we've seen it in our entry-level positions. And then Andrew, I think we're getting pretty close to, actually, we're right at the point where we're going to pass it along to you. And again, thank you all. It's been great speaking with you, and I'll be around to help answer questions as you have them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adam. So kind of just to follow suit and where Adam kind of left off, we really like to be able to front load these sessions with the outlook, the economic outlook of where we've been, where are we going, and how did we get there. So it really does kind of put into a little bit more context on how we're going to help navigate the present and where we are right now. So I think many of us have probably heard the term good jobs. I think this is something that the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, some of our local municipalities are all kind of utilizing this language. And just so the point of it doesn't get lost, I like to kind of break out what is a working definition of good jobs. Now, not every single employer has adopted this exact language that we're looking at, but Colorado Department of Labor and Employment has put this out, and so is our Colorado Workforce Development Coalition. So these are the elements that we're going to kind of look at and kind of play, point counterpoint. So if I'm not here to tell you exactly that you have to raise your wages to this, to level X in order to attract an employee. That's not how this doesn't work, but you need to be able to look at your wages and be able to answer, are they commensurate to what an employee could earn around them? And so being able to have access to understanding where is that level, we can help you with that. So understanding if I'm paying $17 an hour for one position, but it requires a high school diploma, but I'm only paying $17.50 an hour for a position and I'm asking for a bachelor's degree, you're going to see why you have that disparity between people wanting your job and people not wanting your job. So being able to understand the wages that have been determined for the area is going to be important. And we're able to help you with that. We have a tool on our website. You're going to get all these slides. Yvonne will send them out for us. These are working links. You can click on the slides and actually be connected to our website, and you can request this information from us. So we can turn this around fairly quickly. I think on the website it'll ask for up to 3 days for me to turn that around. Pretty good unless you send it in on a Friday at 4:30. More than likely, I'm going to be able to turn that around in about 24 hours. Next one, talent development. So when we're talking about keeping the talent you have and understanding why, what your employees are really, how they're going to develop satisfaction in the work that they're doing for you. And that really does kind of take into this concept of growth. We all want to feel like we're being invested in, that we are worthy of not only the job we're doing now, but you believe in us that we're going to be able to grow with your company and do the next level job and then the next level job. If you have very strict ladders that are not climbable, really you're giving your employees no other choice but to go find someone else that will invest in you. So so creating opportunities to be able to grow your own employees versus going out into the job market, which is very difficult to navigate right now, and hiring somebody that has those skills. How are you able to connect your employees to the people that are going to provide those skills and help them do their job even better? How economic and workforce development will do this. We yearly host a workforce symposium. We bring in the biggest and brightest minds in our area to tell us more about how to find these employment opportunities. So when we say invest in training, invest in talent development, we're not saying that you have to pay for bachelor's degrees for everybody or pay for master's degrees. We have lots of short-term certificate opportunities. We have different ways to attract that, or to be able to provide the access to these training modules. We can help you look through what the community can provide. So if something like this is really intriguing to you and you just don't know where to get started, reach out and we can definitely put you on the roadmap and show you different levels of talent development. We've all been exposed, recently, I think, in the last, 3 to 5 years, DEI, so we're looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion in our hiring practices. And really what this is it's the right thing to do. It's, we treat people fairly and equitably, right? We follow the golden rule that we want to be treated like we want to treat people the way we want to be treated. It's the same thing for our workforce staff. And by developing a very engaging statement and something that you can actually put on all of your job descriptions, all of your websites that you're trying to draw people to, and really make a blanket statement that you follow these rules. These are important to you. This is the value that the business has placed on it. It's incredibly important. It's an expectation now that employees are going to have. If you're not comfortable talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we need to change that, and we need to be able to help you identify that language and to begin using it appropriately. I was supposed to update this slide. The city of Fort Collins is a terrific statement. I didn't put it on the slide. I'll read it to you now, and then I'll update the slides for Yvonne to be able to send it out to you. But it's very direct, and it's very intentional. And so what they state is that it's our determination to dismantle racial disparities and increase equitable access so that persons of all identities, including race, ethnicity, gender, age, class, sexual orientation, physical and mental abilities can fully participate in city services and experience equitable community outcomes. Not only is this on their website where citizens can look at, but they put it on every single job posting that they have. They want everyone to be able to see themselves in the jobs that they provide. That is how you increase your talent pool, is by having a job description, have a job posting that's out in the community, that when people read it, they see themselves inside of it. And if you're not doing that, and the way you know is if you are continuously only getting the same types of people applying for your job, this would be a great place to start, to be able to, are we putting out a statement that others can see themselves in? Are we limiting ourselves in our job descriptions? Are we trying to do the opposite of what we were hoping? And we're shrinking our talent pool versus growing. Health, safety, and wellness. Again, this is an expectation. We just came through a huge pandemic. Health and safety were on the means. We have a lot of workers that were very negatively impacted by this, that where employers did not have in, we were all brand new to the needing to wear masks to work every day. We're, staying, washing our hands constantly, staying away from other people so we don't, catch diseases this way. This is all still very front of mind. And we want to make sure that not only do your employees feel safe coming to work, you have an environment that requires, strict adherence to safety, guidelines. We want to make sure that those are front and center for people to follow. We have the ability to guide them and answer any questions that they have. But you also want to be able to invest in your that life-work balance and be able to encourage people to take vacation time if you provide it. That shouldn't be. No one should have to feel that they're being looked upon as a less than because they took the time that you gave. You should encourage that and be able to, give them free will to be able to make that commitment to their job and to their own wellness. I worked with a small yoga studio up in Silverthorne, and she provided me some really great context of what she does. So she's very low budget. She doesn't have thousands of dollars to spend on each employee to be able to send them to take care of all of their health and wellness needs. But she was able to understand that there was a coffee shop next door, and one of and they were able to partner. So the coffee employees were able to get discounted yoga lessons to be able to help their wellness and safety. And in the yoga studio, they were offered discounted coffee and health drinks that they were able to provide. So those little nuances, understanding those conversations that you had with their employees of what you would find value in, really pay dividends if you can act on them. And it doesn't have to break the bank to be able to do that. And it bleeds right into this last one, this, show your care. What are the perks? We are still in an element. It might be, as far as our workforce participation goes, it's always a pendulum. It's swinging and it's going right, back and forth. Right now, we are still in a very strong job seeker market, and they really do control these elements. So if you are attempting to encourage someone to take a look at the opportunities that you're offering for employment, be prepared to tell them how you're investing in them and why they're important and why you're going to do your best to make sure it's fun to come to work every day. Again, there's not one right way to do this. It just needs to be intentional. And a great way to do that is to have conversations with your current staff. Find out what brought them there to begin with. Where do they see themselves in 5 years, and how can you help them get there? That should be a really great way to encourage not only for them to stay, but they're going to talk to others about how valued they felt because of these simple conversations that you've had with them. So those are the elements of what it takes to be able to have a good job. Here are our menu of options to be able to find the other talent that you may need. So we just talked about how to invest in your current staff to make sure that they don't go running away. Now we're going to help on filling in those gaps of employment that you have. So you still have positions to fill. This is how we can help. Number one, this is a tool we just developed, job description review. I don't think it's very uncommon to know that at our workforce center, we are inviting job seekers in to come work with us. And one of the primary tools that we help with is a resume. It's a job seeker's primary marketing tool. It helps them introduce themselves to the employer, it tells them what skills that they have and why they're such a great fit. What you as an employer you have your job description. This is you putting out into the world exactly what you're looking for and why. It's been my experience, and I'm not going to tell that everybody on the call has done it this way, but it's been my experience that these job descriptions are oftentimes inherited. They may have been created 10, 15, 20 years ago. Maybe you never had any element of creating that, but you just kind of leaned on it, used it, you threw it out there. Back when the labor market was a little bit easier, right? You put a sign in your window, you put a posting on the board, and you just kind of waited. And then, people found their way to you, and you're able to have, gather a pool of talent, interview them, and pick your best candidate or two. Now we need to do some more deliberate activities. We have to understand, we got to really tell the story of why an employee or a candidate would want to come to work for you. And I think this is a really good exercise for every single one of your positions to go through it. Are they still relevant? Are you still putting out into the world the story of what this position does? Are you talking about the training elements and development that you've put into place? Are you talking about the value statement that your business has created to be able to, again, really rely on those individuals to want to come forward? In your job post, you really want to be clear. This is not a time to want to sugarcoat or blur anything of what we're doing. We really want to have that straightforward and honest conversation with candidates and let them know exactly what you're looking for. They should know where you're flexible and where you're not. If you are a manufacturing firm and your plant is operational 24 hours a day and you have 3 shifts and that's the only thing that you can do, that's fine. You just need to be upfront that we don't have that. We have 3 shifts and we're filling, shift A and shift C. And so you have to be available at this time. Employees will understand that. Candidates will understand that. However, if you are flexible, talk about that. What does it look like? Again, if this is about growing your talent pool, and what Adam had talked about is, attracting more women into the workforce, let's be creative on what that might look like. And if you could come up with a shift that started after school drop-off and that ended before school pickup, you might now have access to a whole slew of talent that they may not even know that they had the opportunity to come work for you. So if you can get creative about the shifts that you provide, if you can talk about the ability to have flexibility to work remotely. Again, pendulum, during the pandemic, remote work became extremely important. It was the only way we could get work done. People got a taste of it. Some people really liked it, and they really are now demanding this is what they want. Do you have the ability to allow someone to work from home? If it's never been done before, or if you've never even thought about it, this is a great time to kind of sit down and plan. Are you able to create an opportunity like this? Again, it's just going to increase the number of people that are going to take your job posting seriously. If you are not able to do that, just again, be straightforward. We should understand the why behind it. It's not because it's the only way we've ever done it. You should have something a little bit better than that to be able to give to your candidate. Proxies, when I see it, these are the elements in a job description that I think that we're all used to, right? This position requires a bachelor's degree and 5 years experience to be, a serious candidate for that. Many times, again, we've inherited that job description. We never really outlined the why behind it. I don't know why you need a bachelor's degree or 5 years experience. It's just what we've asked for. And so that's what we've always done. Well, we need to understand that people of color have achieved a bachelor's degree at lower rates than white individuals have. So by making that an element, you are shrinking your talent pool and you're also getting less diverse. So revisit, is it a requirement because of a degree or certificate, a licensure that is needed? Of course, and you have to keep that element. If it's not, this is a really excellent time to understand just how talented individuals are, whether they have a college degree or they don't. And then building familiarity. Your competition, business, the talent for the competition for talent. I should probably put those words in the right order. Is tremendous. It's something that everybody is fighting over the same individuals right now, and being able to build some familiarity is going to be incredibly important, and it's good for business anyway. So if you are new to the community, we want to be able to provide you a stage and shout from the rooftops that you're here, and let them know what you do, why you're important, and all the great things that people can expect from you. Again, when we talk about putting things out into the world for job seekers to understand, think about specifically first about your industry and what does your industry provide, and then go beyond that and what is specifically your business, what have you developed personally that you can provide, and then share it. Don't expect people to understand it without you putting it out into the world. Economic and Workforce is here to help you and give you that megaphone to let the community know. But this is what needs to get done. One of the ways we can help you with this is by these virtual hiring events. Again, these are not large-scale job fairs. This is not you and 90 other employers in a giant room. This is you, your business, and your designee on a video call with job seekers that have already told us that they have the skill sets and the desire to come work for the positions that you have to offer. We're going to get them in a room. We're going to allow you to now tell us exactly who you are, what you've done, how long have you been in business, what are the values that you've developed, what are the positions that you have available, and then, of course, how can people get connected to those? These events have been really valuable in the sense that, one, they're fairly easy for individuals to get connected to. We can do this from any computer that has internet, and then we have the background to be able to, again, screen individuals to find that they have the basic skill sets that will make them qualified for that job. So we're really playing that matchmaker. Very easy to sign up. Again, you'll have these slides in your inbox here by the end of the day, hopefully. All of these links are active, and of course you can reach out via email as well. Building familiarity, we've spent a lot of time recently, and Adam's actually a little bit more interned on what NOCO Inspire can do for you, and Yvonne as well is spent a lot of time helping us develop these tremendous menus of services. But NOCO Inspire has really helped us to find those candidates early and to help them educate them of what the industry really looks like. So if you are interested in bringing in someone, and I think I default to young people, but it's really young people and any people that have not yet been exposed to your industry. And we can do this in a lot of intentional ways. Paid internships, apprenticeships, career tours, job shadows are just a couple of the menu items that NOCO Inspire can help. I really highly recommend that you follow this link when you get the email and really follow the story of what NOCO Inspire can do. Again, this is an element that we could spend another hour talking about all by itself. But it's a collaboration between Larimer County and Weld County, and then all of our universities, our community colleges, and our school districts working in tandem to be able to bring you that talent, and at a fairly easy way to do. So it's a really great way to get connected. And then we have some great sector partners that are going on right now. So if you find yourself in one of these 5 industries and you are not receiving emails about the sector partnerships, please reach out to us. Adam Crowe would be happy to get you connected to be able to talk to you about all the great work they're doing here. If you're not familiar with what sector partnerships do, again, another hour-long webinar could be done. But what they do is they get like people, like individuals in the same room that are experiencing a lot of the same issues, and allow you to brainstorm together on what can be done as an industry moving forward, and how can the public partners be leaned on, and what can we agree to do to help. And then Connecting Colorado. Connecting Colorado is probably where I spend most of my day. It's a great database. I think it gets a reputation that we're trying to brighten a little bit more. But this is a database where I am posting all of the most recent jobs through the community. So if you are not posting your jobs in Connecting Colorado, I highly encourage you to do so. It is a free service, and we do have access right now. The last time I ran numbers, we had 32,000 active users in Larimer County that are, and when I say active users, that means they're logging in at least once a week to be able to see the brand new opportunities. So it is a very well utilized database. We tout the truthfulness of it. So these positions, each one will get vetted. We'll make sure that there are no scammers in there, that each employer is a bona fide employer that's offering some real positions. And so we've built a lot of trust with our job seekers with it. And then Handshake, accessing our talent pools. Handshake is a tremendous resource that's been developed. All of our community colleges and universities are now using Handshake. If you have not created yourself a profile on Handshake, we can walk you through the process of doing so, but it is able to then connect you directly to students and graduates that are coming from these universities and connect them to the positions that you have. And then our last slide before we can ask before questions, Hire Me, Connect My Partner, one of our premier services, something that we're really proud of. And this has been done through a partnership with the Fort Collins Chamber and Economic and Workforce Development. This is really just a tool to help you utilize. If you are recruiting talent from outside of this area, that talent oftentimes will come with family members, partners, that will also need to get connected to employment opportunities. So while you are recruiting the one individual, we want to be able to assist that individual's partner and also finding meaningful and valuable work to increase the likelihood that the person that you are recruiting is going to take that job. We know moving as a family is difficult, and if we all can't find a place, more than likely we're all not moving. And so it's either one of us or it's either none of us or it's all of us. And so understanding that concept, knowing that you have a partner to be able to help with the other recruitment work is also something we take very seriously. Whew, that was a lot of information. We made it in under the deadline, Yvonne. And so I think I'm looking at my watch. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes for questions if there are any available.
Sure, no, that's great. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask for Andrew or Adam? Well, I might take the last 3 minutes or so to talk about a grant that the Fort Collins Area Chamber received on behalf of the whole entire region, on behalf of Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development, also the Weld County Employment Services, CareerWise, all of our sector partnerships that Andrew talked about as well. It's called the Work-Based Learning Incentive Program, or I call it WBLIP. So that's the name that you should remember. We just received a signed agreement yesterday. We have a meeting next week. We've hired a staffer for that position. Her name's Heather Everett. She's sitting here with me. To pay industry for work-based learning. And so every business, if you have a W-9 and you're an established business in the state of Colorado, we can pay you for up to $10,000 to do job shadows, internships, and hiring a staff member. We can pay for you to create the program, to hire a staff member to start doing that work, to create the curriculum, or to pay for their salaries in that work. So we'll have more information coming out about that. If you are interested in being on the list to learn about it, to be on the front edge of learning about that, feel free to email me here at the chamber, Y Myers. My first name starts with a Y. The letter Y Myers, MYERS at fcchamber.org. Call the chamber. Let us know about it. You'll find me also on the chamber website as well. We're working with Heather and creating the list, getting that going. So we have $400,000 to spend in the next 13 months. So we have a lot of money to give out to industry and business, and we'd like for you to sure get those funds. So I agree with John's comment in the chat. I do think Andrew and Adam, you did an amazing job today, really laid out sort of the economics of it, and then all the answers. Our Workforce Center does a lot of amazing work for us as well. I would also add, we also have a business liaison, a work-based learning business liaison, and Stephanie Merrill. She's being paid by Larimer County Workforce Center's WIG grant, Workforce Innovation Grant. So she's also available also on the chamber website. So I appreciate you all attending today. You got amazing, great information. We will send out the recording on the slides. And if you need any more information, Andrew and Adam can help you, as well as the chamber. So we're here to make your search for employees better and deeper. So thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you.